Hello,
Oh,
morning after picking up the pieces, licking our wounds, my friend, after this 49ers debacle yesterday in Green Bay. How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm feeling fine. I don't know what anybody else was expecting from yesterday, but in full disclosure, I bet a decent amount of money on the Packers, and I
Yeah,
thought that like the fucking -6 was outrageous. I just don't know what everybody else was expecting. Like we haven't seen anything different over the last few weeks. So like to go in there expecting something completely different yesterday with no Trent Williams, no Brock Purdy, like no Bosa, Fred Warner's ankle, who it clearly is affecting him still. I mean,
yeah,
it sucks. We could have really used that game, but you know, I just I just don't know what else I was expecting. So I wasn't too let down from what I was expecting, but that's
yeah.
how I'm feeling.
I mean, I think the thing that bugs me the most, which we've talked about like at nauseum with the Kyle Shanahan regime, is like, I mean, like right off the bat, like there's nobody that ever questions that like this guy knows more football than like anybody on the internet has forgotten, or he's forgotten more football than anybody knows, right? Like the guy is obviously very well versed and smart. Um, but like just what I was expecting is maybe like a small adjustment in a game plan or schematics to say, hey, you know what? We're down our all pro left tackle, our starting quarterback's out. Let's go on the road here against Green Bay and maybe let's just like I don't know, line up in a power eye and just say, hey, we're going to control the clock in the game here and like not put as much on Brandon Allen, right?
or
But
not
no, we
or
came
not
out, we
even
ran the same offense.
or not even that, but just understanding that okay, you don't have Trent Williams. Obviously want to try and run the ball, but as we've seen over the years, and not just in San Francisco, that Kyle Shanahan and making in-game adjustments is just like for whatever reason seems to be the most difficult thing on the face of the planet for him. Like okay, the run game doesn't look great. McCaffrey looks a little flat. Like, why not get Jordan Mason a few carries in the beginning of the game? Um, why not? I mean, why not get Christian McCaffrey the ball in space on like a couple of screens, right? It was pretty obvious from the beginning of the game that the Packers lined up and loaded the box, and we're like, all right, well, we're just going to make Brandon Allen try and beat us. And we tried to beat that with the running game, and that didn't work. And then we just refused to go to the quick passing game. So it was like, I don't know. I just don't know what is going to change, right? I just
Yeah,
don't see it happening.
it's very clear like he will not necessarily bend off of like his system, right? And like
No.
make adjustments. You know, like we said, like it coming out and saying, hey, we're going to kind of change things up here. We don't have the personnel to run this scheme or system that has gotten us to multiple Super Bowls. Like, I get it. It works. I buy into it. I've seen it firsthand. But when you don't have all the pieces or your offensive line is just getting pushed into the backfield, you can't run outside zone if you don't move the line of scrimmage forward, right? Like, okay, so maybe we move to a little bit more man blocking or bring in some heavier personnel or anything that could just change up like what the other team's expecting, like I just don't get it. And I think this is just the classic, like Kyle just completely overthinks the room. We see it all the time. Like, hey, this team has a horrific pass defense, but they're pretty good against the run. And we'll come out and run it 25 out of 30 plays. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Or vice versa. Like, hey, this team gets gashed on the ground. The Bears just went for what, like 150 yards on Green Bay last week? But no, we're going to come out and throw the ball 2-1 with our backup quarterback. Like,
Yeah, like
what in the world are we doing?
I don't necessarily mind them throwing the ball very much because you knew that Green Bay, they got their ass kicked last week on the ground, and you knew that they were just going to load the box and make them throw.
Sure.
But the way in which we went about throwing the ball was very strange. Like, you drafted this guy in Ricky Pearsall in the first round this year, and he has no targets yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, Juwan Jennings, okay, did all right. George Kittle, which the one area where they exploited the matchup where they could was Kittle, who's an absolute dominant force against any linebacker who wants to try and cover him. Like, okay, that was one spot.
But how many targets did he even have yesterday?
I know, he should have more.
Totally.
Like, there was key spots in the game where it's like, all right, like, what, like, I don't want to get into the business of comparing the Niners to the Chiefs, right? Like, they're on two different stratospheres. But, like, when things aren't working, the Chiefs have no problems just, like, targeting Kelsey, like, 16 or 17 times in a game.
Or,
right?
yeah, I mean, we saw it with Rashee Rice, right, before he went out with an injury. It's like you would look in the box score and you're like, this guy had 16 targets today. And it's like, yeah, because they couldn't stop it.
Yeah, so like what is precluding us from doing that, right? And then on top of it, you've got the litany of mistakes that just continue to happen game in and game out.
I mean, you got two plays in a row, 12 men on defense. I don't know if I've ever seen that. That's pretty unbelievable.
So like you could make an excuse for the first one that like, hey, they didn't give us time to sub.
It happens.
Whatever, it happens. It took away an interception, which sucks. And who knows if Jordan Love throws that, if he didn't. I mean, he obviously knew. I think that he knew that, he was getting a penalty. It was probably coming back. But like at the same time, like Debo had one catch yesterday.
It's just unbelievable. Guy's like, making $25 million this year.
He had the drop that like, I don't even care. Like, okay, so you're gonna go choke out the long snapper and like get all pissed off at the kicker for missing kicks, but like, where's the accountability for you when you drop a ball that you'd have to catch, right? Like, I immediately thought, like, I was listening to Haberman this morning, I had the same thought that Guy had immediately, was that like, oh yeah, that was probably a shit throw by Allen.
Yeah.
I was, just like walking around the house or whatever. Like, oh yeah, that was probably a shitty throw. But then like you see the replay and it's like,
throw was on him. And I'm sorry, like, fair, unfair, whatever. Like, I know people don't always like comparing this, but like a Pro Bowl player, a captain of your team that's making $25 million has to catch that ball.
100%.
You have to catch that ball. Like, it's just unbelievable. Do you think, I guess we can start on offense, but offense or defense, do you think it's more of an issue, talent or scheme?
Well, I think the biggest issue with the talent on the offensive side of the ball is the fact that you decided to go out and extend Christian McCaffrey and you paid Brandon Ayuk and all these other people, but you didn't clearly address the massive issue on the offensive line. I think that and look, that's on Kyle. Like, I don't know where everybody gets. I don't know where he just gets this fucking free pass where like he's done. I'll give him credit. He's done a really good job making everybody think that like, oh yeah, John Lynch just deals with the personnel. No. Everything stops with Kyle,
especially on offense.
Especially on offense, but all personnel decisions are Kyle's deal. That's just his deal. Yeah. So like the fact that like basically we lost the Super Bowl because of an offensive line blunder, you would think, just me personally, that you would want to come back in the offseason and go, all right, I'm going to make sure, like, we have the skill players on offense. We got to figure out how to pay Brandon, like, whatever. But, like, we've got to figure out how to make sure that this offensive line isn't a liability, right?
Especially when you see, like, it's harder to find premium offensive linemen in today's day and age, but you can get third, fourth, fifth round receivers and running backs that make an impact. We see it all over the league every single year.
100%.
Like, look at the Chargers. Like, and I'm not saying this because I'm, bashing on McCaffrey or saying that they should have moved on from the reigning offensive player of the year. I wouldn't have. But like, the Chargers just got J.K. Dobbins on pennies on the dollar. And they chose to use their top 5 pick on a tackle. And look what's going on with the Chargers. Like, they have put a premium emphasis, as Harbaugh always does, on offensive line. And they go get J.K. Dobbins or, some of these other guys, Lad McConkey, 2nd-round pick. Like, you can get these guys later in the draft that are very good football players.
Yeah, like if you go back and look at the draft, our 2 other 4th-round picks are just basically doing nothing. And I don't even know what the plan for them is in the future. So you just extended McCaffrey, but you decided to draft Isaac Guerrero in the 4th round. And then you also decided to draft Jacob Cowing in the 4th round.
Right.
Like, we know that the draft is a difficult thing to like hit players on. They got lucky with Dominic Pooney. Okay. Whatever their process is. Imagine had that not worked out, how much worse the offensive line would be. I would have thought that those other 2 picks in the 1st round, and good on them for taking Mustafa, right? Because they knew that, they probably weren't going to pay the roofer after just being injured constantly. But like those other 2 4th-round picks, like you just have to give yourself more shots and more chances to hit. But instead they decided to give what's his face a 1-year deal who hasn't played yet, right?
Feliciano.
Yeah, Feliciano, who's super old, hasn't played yet. Like, why not take 2 more stabs at tackle, at guard, at center? I mean, I think that we probably could have found a center that would be better than like 36th in the NFL. Graded out.
They have a guy, and I'm not saying again that like I'm in the practice, on the practice field or in the film room evaluating this guy every day, but like they have Drake Nugent on their practice squad, who I understand is an undrafted free agent. The guy was a starting center for Michigan who won the best offensive line last year in the country. I'm pretty sure that guy can play football. Like,
who did the exact same thing that the 49ers offense asked the center, which is the center's responsible for calling all the protections, right?
And so, and I get if you want to say, okay, he might not be ready, undrafted free agent right out of the gates. Like, we're maybe not going to go with Drake Nugent as our starting center. Can it get worse?
No.
Like, can we get this guy a shot and see what he's all about? Because maybe he is awesome. Maybe he is just a gamer. And you've like, oh, wow, we just found our cornerstone center for the next, 8 years. Like, I don't know, but I know one thing, it's not Jake Brendel. I know that guy is not the center. So I'm with you. I think offensive line's been really bad.
They let Jackson Powers Johnson slip all the way down to the Raiders at pick 44 in the 2nd round when they could have easily just, you know what, it's a little bit of a reach, right? But we're just going to take him in the 1st round because like that's our guy, and like just go that route. And then who knows?
He accomplishes exactly what you want, which is a mauling center in the run game, which is what Kyle's bread and butter is.
And then there was a shitload of other receivers, Keon Coleman, Lad McConkey, Jalen Polk, all these other receivers that went in the 2nd round. Adonai Mitchell, you don't think that guy might have been able to help this team?
Yeah.
Right? That like you could have went and drafted if you wanted to trade back up, or maybe he falls into the 3rd round or whatever it might be. But like, you didn't need to go spend a high draft pick on receiver. Right. And if you were going to do that, like if that was always your plan, then you should have moved Ayuk or Debo during the draft. And then again, you're just trying to give yourself more shots at it. Right. So like, just to blatantly disregard the fact that like the offensive line has struggled and was basically the reason why you lost the Super Bowl, and then to just do basic like nothing about it. And I'll give him credit, McKivitz has been better this year, right? But still, like
but that's not going to get you. This offensive line will not get you past teams like the Lions or the Eagles, or when you eventually get there, hopefully, right? Like, it's not going to help you beat Chris Jones and the Chiefs. We've seen that. Like, they just pure and simple tee off on this offensive line.
So to go back to what you were saying is, I don't think it's scheme so much as like the guys that they have right now just can't execute what they're asking to do. Like Brendel doesn't get hardly any movement to get up to the second level, which is why, like, you see, McCaffrey was doing okay yesterday, but he's getting tackled in the second level. We're getting
Yeah.
no movement to the second level. Aaron Banks is slow as fuck. He doesn't get to the second level hardly ever, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, we're not going to talk about left tackle because Trent was hurt yesterday.
Right.
Pooney does probably the best job, but again, he's a rookie. He had
It's a
3
young,
penalties.
athletic guy.
He had 3 penalties yesterday after only having 1 all year to this point, right? So like I don't think it's scheme so much, but I think that the playbook is just so deep that you have to recognize that what you're running is just not working and make a pivot.
Yes.
Because they have all the plays to make it work. Like I would have liked to have seen Juszczyk get a little bit more involved yesterday.
Yeah, when you're down guys, like you lean on some of the yes, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, like you, to your point, run up, play some more fullback. Okay, you don't want to play a lot of Pearsall or whatever. That's fine. Line Juszczyk up and get him a mismatch on the linebackers, just like you have on Kittle on the other side. So you can run play action. You can run a screen to Juszczyk. Like he's a legitimate force in the offense. I'd much rather be throwing the ball to Kyle Juszczyk and rather than fucking Eric Saubert, right, who slips and then can't get up, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and this guy brings out a good point. Hey, man, like, where is Jordan Mason? This guy looked pretty freaking good all year. And again, I understand that McCaffrey's coming back, but like, okay, if you don't trust Ricky Pearsall or you feel like you have to bring in, let's say, because again, Kyle's scheme calls for 2 tight ends in this situation, right? Okay, well, maybe because Saubert's not any good, we just change the formation. You don't have to change the play. You can run most plays out of multiple formations, right? Like, I would bring in Juszczyk, or hey, let's run Guerrero as like more of an H-back here because of not only his physicality, but he has a legit threat at his speed to run that same route Saubert can, and he can house one.
Or what about what the Commanders did? I think it was Thursday night, right? Where everyone, I mean, we did really well in DFS with it. Everyone's like, no, Robinson's back. They're not going to play Eckler at all. Like, you know what they did? On 24 offensive snaps, they played both of them together.
Yep.
What an idea.
And right? Legit, and I know people don't think of him as this kind of player. They used Eckler as a lead blocker. Then they'd use B-Rob as a lead blocker. Well, they'd use both as like a more of a counter, a counter play where they're just trying to get, trying to confuse the defensive eyes and give them something they haven't seen before.
Correct. But I mean, so the team prepared for this all year, all week, right? The Packers did. Put something out there that you don't have on film yet in a massive must-win game. Yeah. Right.
Like, and that's what I'm going at. Like, again, if you lost this game, you had to get 1 of 2 from Buffalo or Green Bay. So now this is like legit dire straits here and a horrible situation. Buffalo coming off a bye at home. I'm with you. I'm coming out with I formation that they never show. I'm coming out with Guerrero as the H-back. I'm coming out with Guerrero, Mason, and McCaffrey in a formation, and then motion them out or break out of that and then run a play. Like, give them something that's just a little bit of a curveball, right? So and it's getting younger talent on the field.
And it's strange because they do it in some situations. So like last week when Kittle was out, they'll line Jennings up in some of the formations where they'll line Kittle up on the touchdown that Jennings caught last week against Seattle, where they lined him up tight. And I go, oh, they're going to throw it to him right there because this is a Kittle play, right?
Yeah.
So it's weird that Kyle chooses to do it sometimes, but not all the time. Yeah. And then like it was a bad first half, but at the end of the first half, you're still only down 7 points.
It was the game was not like crazy out of reach. So like, it felt that way.
Okay, you're at halftime. What we're doing is not working. Let's just try some shit. Like these guys are getting paid millions and millions of dollars, and I get it's maybe not your perfect scheme, Kyle, or like, oh, this isn't what we practice, but it's like, let's just try something different. And if it fails, Like,
Yeah.
I would have no problem with that. But, like, just not doing anything, it's like, nope, we're okay. We're just going to go out there and do the same old shit. And then,
Well, yeah, that's just running out. You're like, hey, we're gonna show up and just run our scheme and then get blown out by 30 points. Like, okay, what's the point of this here? And the same thing goes on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like they run primarily the same thing. They run a 4-3 with a cover 3 behind it. That's what
yeah,
they run. And so it's like, okay, I understand even when you blitz, like you have some, curveballs thrown in there. What about just coming out and being like, you know what? Buffalo's expecting cover 3. Let's come out and run just like a ton of quarters or a ton of cover 2 tomorrow. Like, let's just see what happens. And
well,
maybe we confuse Josh Allen a little bit and force a turnover. Or
well, you've got a lot of these, like you've got a lot of these really dynamic players in the secondary that you can play in the nickel, right?
yeah,
And like, let's just roll and like play a nickel and bring more blitzes. But again, to your point, they just don't do that. They're
they
just like,
don't.
no, this is what we practiced all year. We're just gonna roll with it.
It's because their philosophy has always been cover 3, keep everybody in front of you, bend but don't break, because like we don't want to give up big plays or things like that. And it's a problem because, like you said, they're bending and breaking. So it's like, why not try to get a little bit more aggressive? Yeah. Could you give up some deep balls? Sure. Did I not see Christian Watson drop a 50-yard touchdown yesterday? Like they're giving him up anyway. So just
exactly.
Might as well get aggressive and try to force, again, some sack fumbles, some turnovers, and get the ball back for this offense and put them give them a little bit of an advantageous situation, because we know the special teams isn't going to do it, but again, that same thing on special teams. Like, hey, how about we sell out on the first punt on Sunday night for a punt block? Let's just go for it and see what happens. Like,
but like based
oh my
on
God, what a novel idea.
Again, it's so strange. So we go back to Kyle Shanahan in the offseason, right? What did we do? We went the cheap route on coaches. Let's just call a spade. All right. We could have went and paid for a high-level defensive coordinator that fits our scheme and fits our system. There was guys out there, right? But they just said, nah, we think that Nick Sorensen's okay. And I'm sure he's a fine coach, but like he clearly is not cut out for the defensive coordinator position.
Well, they came out and said they hired him primarily because he knew the system and they wanted to keep like continuity. Okay. Or you could have said, hey, you know what? Someone made a good point this morning. I think it was Larry Krueger. Eddie D back in the day would have been like, okay, I understand we have the salary cap. We have to play within those rules. But there ain't no salary cap on coaches. I would have came out and offered Mike Vrabel $15 million this year to come and take the defense and say, do whatever you want. Well, do whatever you want. You want to play man in a 5-2? I don't care. Come and be the best defensive coach we can find.
100%, because they are cash rich enough of a team where they can manipulate the salary cap into their favor, which everyone's always asking, well, how do the Niners keep signing these guys? It's because they pay a lot of cash up front to minimize the cap hits, right? Yeah. And,
but for coaches, there is no cap. Like, you can pay every coach $20 million. Like, go out and go get some guys. And I'm sorry, Kyle, it's going to make you uncomfortable to have some people in the building that might push back.
No, but we went out
even kind of
and
said,
we hired fucking Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
To be like a defensive, like behind the scenes assistant. That guy has no fucking track record of like being a quality defensive coach in the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, the Rams jet set at him, and or he went and took the job with the Chargers. The minute he left, the Rams won the Super Bowl in the following year.
Yeah,
like this isn't like a secret. Like Brandon Staley's not any good.
So I see an interesting parallel building with the 49ers that everyone, Kyle's got to go. Kyle, Kyle's not going to go anywhere. Okay.
No.
The only way that Kyle goes somewhere is it's going to be like an Andy Reid situation in Philadelphia, okay, where he was kind of having the same problem. They were getting to championship games. They got to the Super Bowl, but they just like couldn't get over the hump. Yeah. And it's because there was a really dominant – there wasn't a cohesion of like what's going on. in the building, right? And it's going to get to a point where, but like this is not going to change next season. Like Kyle Shanahan's not just going to like wake up and be like, oh, maybe I should hire like an extra set of eyes on offense. Like he's just not going to do that.
Well, that's what I mean, where I think it's going to have to come from Jed or John and just basically be like, look, Kyle, we understand like you're a brilliant offensive mind, but like you very clearly like don't pay attention to special teams. You have your ways set and talent and personnel. Like, take a step back. You just focus on the offense. Let us go get a veteran, solid defensive coordinator and special teams person. You don't have to worry about that. Or someone made a point like, when they were really humming, right? They had Mike McDaniel right there next to him just to be like, Kyle, I wouldn't call that play right now. I would call this. Like, I would, or hey, McCaffrey's looking a little tired. Let's get Mason in there. Like, he's so entrenched on like his play sheet, the next play. Everything else around him is just noise. Like he's not locked in on that. So, yeah, man, I think I'm with you. I think the way, it's crazy is like they're not dead, even though it looks like it when you watch this team play. But I think their only shot is they're going to have to throw some curveballs out here and get different and just show up Sunday night with something that's not what we've been watching the last 6 weeks,
Yeah. I mean, the biggest problem to what you're talking about right now is that like he doesn't really have any of those young dynamic guys in the hopper that are adept enough. He's got Mick Lombardi and he's got Clay Kubiak, which Kubiak is the passing game specialist, right?
Well, no, he's got Brian Griese.
I mean, but Brian Griese is the quarterback's coach.
Yeah.
Like he's not doing anything with the offense. And like Brian Griese is a great quarterback coach, and I think that's all they want him to do, which is fine. But like they don't have any of these guys like McDaniel or some of these other guys that are adept enough to be able to step in and do that. So it's kind of just like all on Kyle, and it kind of all was last year. And you saw some of these issues popping up last year, and now you see a lot more of them this year, right?
Yeah.
So, it's just like, I see people, promote Clay Kubiak to OC. Kyle's just never going to do that.
Yeah.
He just will never do that.
And in the short term, again, you can't change the talent right now, right? Like we're too far into the season to adjust really your roster. But let's just simplify and try something a little bit different. Like get off of your scheme or again, run your same fundamentals of your offense, but like let's run more two tight end. Let's run more,
I mean, I personally want to see Mason and McCaffrey on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
I want to see out. I want to see I really want to see anybody but Eric Saubert in the game. Like put Tonjes in there. Yeah. Like, and here's the problem overall too, is the Yorks and Jed specifically hired a guy like Kyle Shanahan because they don't want to be involved whatsoever. It's the reason why they got away and parted ways from Jim Harbaugh, because Jim Harbaugh was too heavy of a voice in the building, right? And, Jim is a tough guy to deal with, right? But he gets results wherever he goes. And I'm not saying that I want Jim Harbaugh back, but there has to be another voice that comes in. And because right now, John Lynch, you mentioned John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan is the one who hired John Lynch. So, like,
he is.
John's not going to be the one to come tell Kyle anything because he doesn't want to get fucking fired.
Yeah, but I think it comes down to a point, though, where, like, you look at the season, you're 5-6. John Lynch has, had much more success in this league than Kyle Shanahan. Like, let's just call it what it is. And if not more, just as much, right? Like a very well-respected Hall of Fame player, very smart. Get into Kyle's office and just say, Kyle, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Get Mason more involved. Get Garendo on the field. Parasol needs to be involved. Like, come on. Someone has to be willing to at least speak up a little bit and talk some sanity into this because, like you said, it's just Groundhog Day. Every week, it's the same thing I throw on. And it's like, oh, it's going to work today. Or, oh, that was a nice play, like 1 out of 7. And then, oh, yeah, now we're down. Oh, it's slipping away. Oh, it's over. We lost.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Like,
So like, but like to kind of finish up and wrap this up,
yeah,
like you got a point. Like they're not dead. They technically are only one game back out of first. And we saw, I don't know if anybody else watched the Seattle and in Arizona game yesterday. I mean, you saw that Arizona is just not, really what their record says that they are, right? They
no,
don't have a very good defense. They have a very one-dimensional offense where if they are not running the ball, they really can't do anything,
yep.
right?
And the
They've got
Niners got another crack still at Arizona and the Rams. Again, this Buffalo game is very challenging to win, but after that, it lightens up.
yeah, they've
After
got
the
the
Buffalo game,
Bears.
the
They've
Bears,
got,
they got Miami on the road.
they've got Miami on the road, which is going to be difficult for them, but not an unwinnable game.
Right.
Like you just
And the
you've
Lions,
got
which is going to be a challenge.
the Lions is not a game that you can win. I don't think. As the team sits right now, maybe if Bosa comes back, you can get enough pressure, but it's just, I mean, obviously you can't. Anybody can win every single week, but like we saw yesterday with the defense. I think there were 17 missed tackles, maybe
Right.
18. You're not going to win any sort of games like that. Like,
Nope.
because the Lions are going to do the same shit to you. They have two outstanding running backs. They're going to try and run the ball. So, like,
But I think that I said this to someone earlier, watching the game, watching all the missed tackles. It felt like to me it's not a personnel issue. I know there's a few guys that are really driving me nuts. It felt like a team that is like thinking way too much.
yeah,
Like, again, just let's simplify. Like you said, go man to man. Everyone else, bring the heat and get to the ball. Like, guys, this is not, football can be a very complicated game, and it can also be a very simple game. Like,
yeah,
I think the team is just like way in their head right now. And if you just simplify things and get aggressive and have more, sanity with it, like, I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of the path because you can't change the personnel. Like,
no. They've just got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out really quick. And there has to be. My hope is that yesterday was a bad enough loss
to wake them up.
Like, had they only lost by like 6 points or like 8 points, or like, we came down and we kicked a field goal to, go down by 7, and then we had a chance for an onside kick. If we had something like that,
yeah,
I don't think much would have changed. I'm hoping that this was jarring of enough of a loss that they'll go, okay, we gotta fucking figure this out.
Yeah, we gotta
try something different. And like, look, just some normal, like really small things. Get Mason and McCaffrey on the field at the same time. Get Mason some more touches, right? Go back to your quick passing game. I mean, I was surprised that Brock popped up and then was, out this game. Is he even going to be back this week? I don't have a high confidence. Like,
I don't know.
Did they sit him this week because, like, hey, we got to win one of these 2 games, and his shoulder is just so sore that, like, he's not even going to – he just needs a week of rest, right? Like, I don't know. But we can't – I don't think that they can beat Buffalo with Brandon Allen or Josh Dobbs.
You probably can't, but again, like, you definitely can't beat them trying to run this system without those horses. So, again, like – I don't know. I would at least be a little bit more intrigued if they just came out, let's say on Sunday night, and they just came heavy and said McCaffrey Wildcat with Mason. We're just going to come right at you downhill. And I'm not saying to run that 60 plays, but can we have a little bit of a wrinkle? Can we maybe run an up tempo, no huddle offense, Wildcat, whatever it is, just to throw a freaking slider at the defense? Like, come on, man. So.
Yeah.
That's all, but
they've got some serious issues. I mean, whether they can turn it around and be competitive this week, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I mean, Bosa's probably likely going to be out again. I wouldn't expect him back, and for sure this week, maybe next week. I just read Kyle's comments after the game about Brock. Still very unclear. He said it's up in the air. He said we haven't done anything since he's been rehabbing here the whole time.
Yeah.
we'll talk to him early Monday and Tuesday, and we'll probably get a better idea of where he's at, but again, now you got to travel all the way across the country. So you're losing a day of, stim, UV therapy, all the stuff that you can do. Now you can do that shit on the plane. But again, it's just different, right?
Yeah.
It's just different than playing at home. So, I we'll see what he does. If Purdy doesn't play this week, I mean, and he can't play the week after, then why? I'm almost of the opinion just shut him down for the whole rest of the season.
Yeah.
But again, I also don't know that Purdy's the guy long term. I just don't.
Yeah.
He had to have UCL surgery on his throwing arm, and then now he's got a shoulder problem for a guy that already doesn't have the best arm strength in the world and relies on his absolutely elite, timing and accuracy and ability to read plays and read coverages.
And he's 24 years old. Like, this is not, it's not a 36-year-old guy now, having arm problems. Like,
yeah.
So
it's a little concerning. I mean, before we leave, everyone's throwing this out there. Would you go sign Daniel Jones?
I wouldn't, just because my concern is Daniel Jones is not the same as Sam Darnold in the sense, like the reason we took a reclamation or a project to like reboot his career was like he's an ultra talented guy who's had no coaching and no stability. Daniel Jones, I know the team has sucked, but the guy's had Brian Daboll now for a couple of years, and like he just truly could not fundamentally complete like 10-yard crossing routes. Like
I don't disagree with you. I don't think that he does it. The only thing I will say for him is he can run a little bit.
He can,
right? Which I think that Purdy, has been doing this year, and it's really helped the team.
So actually, I take that back. So to answer your question, if their goal was to say, hey, we're going to go sign Daniel Jones because Purdy's probably done for the year, and let's say they like somehow miraculously won Sunday night versus Buffalo, and like, hey, we're going to plug this guy in just to run like RPOs for the rest of the year, I'm not opposed to that. But if their thought is like, let's get Daniel Jones in here to compete with Purdy, I think Daniel Jones just sucks.
But you could do that with Josh Dobbs, and he's already
exactly.
Like I would rather start. Like I know that Brandon Allen can throw the ball. I would probably rather roll with Josh Dobbs.
Yeah,
to be honest with you. I don't, especially since Brandon Allen's got a broken fucking finger on his non-throwing arm.
I'd absolutely roll Dobbs out there because he can move and again give some unstructured plays that maybe the defense isn't ready for.
Yeah, I mean, you just saw what it's going to be with Brandon Allen. Like
that's not good enough because that system was not good enough to win a lot of games with Brock Purdy.
No.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, they got their shit cut out for him this week against Buffalo on a team coming off a bye with a very, very high level of confidence and a team that has a lot of young guys on it. But, we're now at the point in the season where a lot of these rookies and a lot of these young guys start to excel. So they've got Keon Coleman. Khalil Shakir is a nice player. Kincaid will be back from his injury. Amari Cooper should be back from his injury.
Keep the ball out of Buffalo's hands offensively.
You got to try. Maybe, I haven't looked at the weather. Maybe we can get some weather in Buffalo.
No, they said expect some rain or snow. And maybe they come out with the 1987 Nebraska offense and the power eye, and just say, we're running it 48 times today. Come and get some.
I mean, Kyle did it with Trey Lance.
Yeah. If that's what it takes to win games, if you're truly in on this, let's
run QB power 18 times with Josh Dobbs.
Not even Josh Dobbs. Just put McCaffrey back there. And just line up Mason, Garindo, and Juszczyk right in front of them. Or line up, get Garindo, Juszczyk, and Kittle, like right on the left side next to Trent, and just say we're coming out 50 times.
But we've seen that in the Eagles playoff game, and that's just not going to work in the end.
Well, again, 38-10 is not exactly.
I get it, but you've got a guy in Josh Dobbs who can run that offense. So like,
I know.
What are we going to lose?
Yeah, I get it. I hear you, Papa J. Steve Bono, Not sure who's out there compares to Steve Bono, but
there's nobody. There's nobody is the question, right?
Well, and it's going to get even slimmer options because when you pay Purdy next year, most likely, you can't be paying $5 million for a backup. So you better draft someone that's like semi-decent that you can groom for a couple of years and let him go.
They're for sure going to pay him too. All these people, like, they're going to pay him. So, like,
yes,
just
100%.
saddle in with that, right? So
exactly. All right, buddy.
I don't know if it's the right move, but
that's
what's going to happen.
All right. Maybe we'll pop back on later this week, do a little preview, or we'll see what other news breaks here in the next 72 hours. But
hopefully, we'll just hope and pray that Purdy is going to play, and we're just going to hope and play that at least Trent Williams is going to play. Sounded
Bosa
like he was
nice.
close. Bosa's not playing. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
So
most likely.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later on.
Peace.
Bye.